Veyari Sentinel challenged Oblivion itself. Human answered instead. Emerald sigils pulsed along the midnight walls of the relic vault as Captain Jalen Myros laid his hand on the archive's ancient interface. The chamber stirred, columns of greenish light rising and falling in rhythm with his pulse, bathing his weathered face and silver-threaded hair in spectral luminescence. In the hush, every breath felt sacrilegious. He'd never been this deep in the vault before, and now every inch of the space pressed in, heavy with forbidden purpose. He focused on the interface, palm burning with the residual static of Veyari encryption. Jalen's heart hammered. He was here for prescribed knowledge, secrets so volatile that scholars before him had vanished or returned, with their minds erased, empty-eyed and silent. He swallowed hard, jaw clenched. If he failed, the same fate awaited. A spectral projection flickered into being, a cascade of ancient glyphs, swirling into the outline of a Veyari priest, then fracturing into something inhuman. The air tingled as the image resolved, showing a cosmic web, worlds, souls, lifelines, all feeding a great pulsing mechanism. Jalen's fists balled, nails biting into skin. The Veyari, he whispered, voice thick with disbelief, built our culture on the lie that death is glory, that the final trial brings us closer to the stars. But the sigils pulsed with cruel certainty. Death was no judge. Death was a mechanism, a machine harvesting sentient life across epochs, feeding on the beliefs of those it devoured. Everything he'd been taught, every rite, every sacrifice, manipulated by a parasite that spanned eons. With a choked cry, Jalen slammed his fist into the controls. The projections trembled, green light flickering wildly. He fought the urge to scream as the ground beneath his faith crumbled. His communicator buzzed, slicing through the silence. Lyra's voice broke through the static, urgent, undercut with worry. Jalen, where are you? The council grows impatient. They expect your answer before the next bell. Jalen forced his voice to remain steady, though his breath trembled. Tell them I'm preparing for the trial, he said, gaze fixed on the undulating glyphs. A new trial, one we have never faced. Brother, what are you doing? Lyra's concern sharpened. You sound different. If you know something. He cut her off, voice taut as a drawn wire. I can't tell you. Not yet. This ritual, it could redeem us all. Or doom us. Static surged, Lyra's voice blurring. Jalen, please, whatever you're planning. He killed the channel. There was no turning back. He turned to the projections, studying impossible schematics, interlocking gears the size of worlds, soul forges blazing with the memory of 10,000 civilizations. If death was a machine, it could be confronted, and he would be the one to do it, to do. He moved deeper into the sanctum, passing through an archway of obsidian carved with the names of the revered dead. The air grew colder, charged with the ache of generations. He knelt before the altar, withdrawing his ritual dagger, blade dark as the void, etched with runes of passage. He pressed it to his palm, slicing flesh in one swift motion. Blood welled up, bright against the stone, a vivid defiance against the green glow. He pressed his hand to the altar and spoke, voice echoing with fury and grief. I am Captain Jalen Myros of the Veyari Sentinel Order. I challenge the Harvester of Souls to single combat. I demand justice for the deception that has poisoned my people for centuries. The chamber fell into a silence so deep it seemed the universe itself paused. Then the air warped, sigils bending, walls folding in on themselves. Reality thinned. An immense alien presence seeped into the chamber, pressing against Jalen's thoughts, its voice a cacophony of grinding metal and distant, mournful cries. Your challenge is noted, warrior, it thundered, voice scraping at the core of his being. But you are unworthy to face the harvester directly. Confront its greatest adversary, the one your kind call the Deathbreaker. A human who has thwarted our harvests more than any other. Defeat him, and you may face us. The sanctum dissolved, stone and light unraveling in a storm of data. Jalen felt himself pulled from his world, from everything he'd known. His last thought a prayer that Lyra would forgive the storm he was about to unleash. Elsewhere, on the bustling outpost of Horizon's Edge, Silas Reed sat alone in the shadowed hush of the midnight engine lounge. Neon strips glimmered off polished steel tables, but no light touched the man in the corner booth. His cybernetic veins flickered beneath tanned skin, data streams dancing behind gray eyes. All around, the air was thick with whispers. That's him, the one who stormed the Reaper ship. They say his blood runs with liquid circuitry. He's the reason the Harvester's agents hunt the edges of the sector. Silas tuned out the chatter, eyes fixed on the glass in his hand. 1,000 lifetimes worth of losses flickered behind his gaze, each one a scar beneath the circuitry. He barely registered the new shift in the air, a subtle cold, the scent of ozone. He looked up. You should all leave. Now. A handful of patrons hesitated, glancing at each other. But something in Silas's tone, calm, final, sent them hurrying for the exits. In the sudden quiet, the lounge lights bent and dimmed as the machine's agents appeared. Tall, faceless, their surfaces absorbing all light. They moved with the certainty of predators. The lead construct's voice vibrated through the metal floor. Silas Reed, you are summoned to judgment. Silas grinned without humor. You lot never learn. In a blur, he moved. Neural pulse detonated in his palm, shorting one construct's circuits. Another swung an arm like a blade. Silas ducked, rolled, and came up slicing through synthetic sinew with a monomolecular knife. Plasma fire shredded the bar, burning holes in the air. Silas spun, weaving between shots, dismantling another construct with cold efficiency. The last agent lunged, faceless mask inches from Silas's own. Submission is required. Silas rammed his blade upward, voice a low growl. Not today. As the final construct fell, the machine's voice thundered through the ruins. The trial begins, whether you consent or not. The world lurched. Blackness pressed in on every side, swallowing the broken lounge, the fleeing patrons, the very notion of escape. Silas stood tall, features calm in the face of oblivion. Tell them I go of my own will. Darkness engulfed him, and the game began. Silas materialized in an impossible chamber, walls spiraling into infinity, floors thrumming with unseen energy. Each breath he drew tasted of ozone and electric promise, air humming with potential violence. Light bled from the seams in the black stone, coiling around his boots and vanishing into the whirling depths above. Across the chamber, a figure stood poised and unmoving, taller than most men, his ceremonial armor battered but proud, dark as the void and etched with gold. Obsidian skin gleamed beneath the sigil-carved plates. His gaze was iron, posture regal, radiating the kind of authority bred through ritual and survival. Jalen Myros looked every inch the legend the machine had promised. You're less imposing than the legend's claim, Jalen growled, voice echoing off the charged walls. Silas smirked, rolling his shoulders. Legends tend to exaggerate, especially when they're written by the losers. Jalen's lips twisted, baring teeth. I sought to challenge the harvester, and instead, I find a human tinkerer. He spat the last word as though it were a curse. Silas let his eyes flick over Jalen's armor, its scars and the history behind every one. Careful. My tinkering has kept your world safe from the harvest for years. If you're looking for someone to blame, try the thing pulling our strings. Before tension could snap, a section of the wall dissolved in a shimmer of emerald sigils. Another Veari entered, but where Jalen was stone, she was flame incarnate, tall, statuesque, her obsidian skin traced by intricate gold filigree, a cascade of pure white hair falling to her waist. Her luminous eyes caught the light, reflecting it in opaline flashes. Pointed ears peeked from her hair, and every movement radiated intelligence and self-assurance. Naira. The name drifted into Silas's mind, unbidden but undeniable. Brother, this posturing is pointless. She sighed, voice deep and melodious, as if she could command the room with a whisper. She moved between the two men with effortless grace, eyes sliding over Silas, her curiosity as palpable as the energy in the chamber. So you're the infamous Deathbreaker. Your neural signatures are extraordinary. She circled Silas, fingertips dancing close to the edge of his jaw, then tracing the faint blue glow of his implants. Hybrid cortex? Layered synaptic mesh. And is that biophotonic mapping? Her tone was both clinical and fascinated. Silas found himself searching for words, a rarity. I had good teachers, some human, some not. Her gaze lingered, a subtle challenge in her eyes. I wonder if any of them prepared you for this. The way her breath brushed his neck sent an involuntary thrill through him, more rattling than any machine threat. The chamber suddenly quaked. Platforms rose from the floor, jagged pillars spinning into existence, energy fields flickering from one to the next. The air tightened, as if bracing for impact. A deep mechanical rumble approached, vibrations threatening to shake their bones apart. Naira's eyes flicked to her gauntlet, data cascading in holographic bursts. The first trial begins. The machine tests us with combat, riddles, endurance, adapting its methods to our strengths and weaknesses. Jalen stepped forward, drawing an energy blade from his hip. Its edge shimmered with contained fury. We fight. Simple as that. Silas's mouth curled into a crooked smile. Sometimes brains beat brawn, Veari, especially when the enemy rewrites the rules. Naira's lips curved in a subtle, approving smile, her attention divided between the rising chaos and Silas's easy confidence. Perhaps you'll both survive long enough to compare notes. A Reaper drone burst through one of the whirling walls, a towering construct, its segmented arms clicking into weapon configurations, a single red lens glaring like an unblinking eye. It moved with predatory precision. Stay behind me, Jalen barked, stepping forward, blade raised. Teamwork, Silas corrected, already shifting to the side, eyes never leaving the drone. He scanned for Naira, making sure she was in his periphery. The drone surged forward, arms spinning, plasma arcing between its claws. Jalen lunged, blade slashing in wide, brutal arcs that forced the drone's arms high. Silas darted in low, hacking at exposed joints with a pulse disruptor, blue sparks flying. He dodged a slicing arm, the blow missing his head by a breath. Right servo cluster, vulnerable, Naira called, her voice cutting through the din as she streamed tactical overlays onto their HUDs. Jalen roared, feinting left before driving his blade into the indicated joint. The drone staggered, gears screeching. Silas rolled beneath it, jamming a neural spike into the drone's hip. It spasmed, circuitry seizing, and Jalen carved downward, severing the last connection. The drone crashed to the ground, motionless. The room filled with the faint scent of burnt circuitry and victory. Impressive coordination, the machine's voice intoned, dripping with cold amusement. Proceed to the memory vault. Without warning, the floor shifted and stretched, walls drawing back to reveal a vast new chamber. Crystalline structures floated in the air, each one pulsing with inner light. A chorus of memory, echoing the lives and deaths of lost civilizations. The air buzzed with sorrow and knowledge, the boundaries between past and present blurring at the edges. Naira moved forward, spellbound. "It's a record of everything," she murmured, fingers grazing a floating crystal. As she accessed its core, swirling images unfolded. Ancient wars, planets scoured, the endless hunger of the harvester. She gasped, data cascading across her vision. "Humans are immune to the harvest. Your neural patterns disrupt the machine's process. You're an anomaly to its core," she whispered, turning to Silas. Her eyes were wide, awed, and a little afraid. Silas let out a long, slow breath. "Figures. I always did have a knack for ruining a good scheme." Jalen's brows drew together, realization dawning. The machine didn't want you isolated. It wanted you removed, out of reach, so it could continue harvesting unopposed. I was just bait. Alarms blared, a harsh, mechanical shriek. The chamber shuddered, memory crystals spinning faster. The machine adapted, locking down the exit pathways. Energy fields snapped into place, sealing them in. Naira's hands flew across her gauntlet, extracting data as fast as she could. "We need to move. I can destabilize the shields for only a few moments." Jalen stepped between her and a wall of rising energy, blade at the ready. "Extract what you can. I'll cover you." Silas scanned the room, eyes flitting from exit to exit. He spotted a maintenance hatch flickering at the edge of the field. "I see a way out. Nira, tell me when." Naira's fingers danced, her lips moving in silent calculation. "Almost now." She slammed her palm against her gauntlet, and the shield sputtered. "Go!" Silas shouted, grabbing Naira's wrist as the three of them sprinted for the opening. Jalen took the rear, blade lashing out at the tendrils of energy that tried to snag them. They tumbled through the hatch, landing in a shadowed corridor pulsing with warning lights. Behind them, the vault sealed. The sound of it echoed like a tomb. For a moment, they simply breathed, chests heaving. Naira leaned against the wall, her white hair a halo in the gloom. "That data, it changes everything. If we can get it to the council, we can break the cycle." Jalen nodded, pride and uncertainty warring in his eyes. "You fought well, human. Not as a rival, but as an ally." Silas caught Naira's gaze, a spark passing between them. "I'll take that as a compliment." She smiled, small, secret, electric. Her hand lingered against his as she finished securing the data, fingers brushing his in a silent promise of more. In the chaos, something new had ignited. A bond between a warrior bound by honor, a scientist driven by curiosity, and a human who defied Oblivion. As alarms blared and the machine adapted to their defiance, Silas could not help but notice the way Naira's luminous eyes lingered on him, the subtle warmth of her touch, the brush of her hand as she gathered the precious data. Amid the storm, something undeniably romantic sparked. Danger and destiny entwined in the darkness, three lives now fused by fate. They found shelter in a narrow maintenance shaft, its walls thrumming with the echoes of distant alarms and the machine's relentless search. The three of them pressed close, the air thick with the scent of scorched metal and adrenaline. Silas led, his implants pulsing faintly beneath his skin, flickering with neon blue as he processed schematics, heat signatures, and warning signals faster than thought. "Left at the next junction," he whispered, voice low. "We'll bypass the main surveillance grid." Naira moved behind him, her breath quick and shallow, armor marked with fresh energy burns where plasma bolts had nearly caught her. Even battered, her posture was fierce. Jalen brought up the rear, hand never straying far from the hilt of his energy blade, eyes scanning for threats in every shadow. Silas glanced back, admiring the way Naira moved. Each stride purposeful despite exhaustion, the intricate gold patterns on her arms catching the dim emergency light, turning her into a living sigil against the darkness. For a fleeting moment he caught the gleam in her eyes, a mixture of terror, defiance, and something else entirely. They ducked beneath a sparking conduit, boots slipping on the smooth metal. Silas steadied Naira with a hand on her arm, feeling the heat of her skin beneath the armor. She didn't pull away. Nira's voice was steady, but her words cut deep. The data shows the machine hasn't only harvested civilizations, it's shaped them. Programmed beliefs, rituals, even the concept of the afterlife. It's been seeding itself into the foundations of every society it touches. Jalen's face twisted, pain and fury warring behind his eyes. Was everything about us engineered? Every rite, every hero's song, a line of code in someone else's machine? Naira's gaze softened, her hand lingering on Silas's as he crouched beside her, pulling up a holographic projection from her gauntlet. Not all, Silas said gently. You fought, you loved, you lost. The machine twisted the story, but it never owned your spirit. Their hands touched as Naira scrolled through data, fingers brushing, and Silas felt a jolt of warmth shoot through him. He was drawn to the elegant gold patterns tracing Nira's obsidian skin, the way her luminous eyes met his, steady and unafraid. In the flickering light, she was both scientist and warrior, both legend and living, breathing hope. Naira glanced down at their joined hands, lips curving in a small, secret smile. Every time you disrupt a harvest, she continued, you leave traces of human neural code. At first I thought you were spreading a virus, but it's not that. You're spreading evolution. Other species are starting to adapt, to resist the machine. It's learning fear, for the first time in epochs. Silas met her gaze, surprised by the tenderness beneath her logic. So I'm not just a problem. I'm the start of a new pattern. Jalen's voice was raw. Then the harvester's grip isn't absolute. There's hope for all of us. Before anyone could answer, the chamber trembled, a deep shudder passing through the shaft as if the entire machine realm was taking a breath, preparing to expel them. Lights strobed red, shadows dancing across their faces. The machine was searching, probing, recalibrating. Naira's hand gripped Silas's arm, her touch electric. There's more. She drew him close, urgency radiating from her every word. The machine is failing. Its harvests can't sustain it anymore. Every cycle, the returns diminish. Its programming is degrading. Jalen's brows knit together. How long before it collapses? Naira's eyes flickered with 1,000 calculations, each more dire than the last. Centuries, maybe less, unless it finds a way to process human neural patterns. But it can't. Humans are the antidote. Your minds short-circuit its algorithms. You're immune. Silas felt the weight of her words, the enormity of what he carried. He searched her face, captivated by the intellect burning there, the strength beneath her composure. If it can't process us, he said softly, then it's desperate. That makes it dangerous. Naira's hand tightened on his, her other hand working at her gauntlet as she scrolled through streams of code and fragments of intercepted commands. Desperate and unpredictable. But there's a chance. A way to end this for good. Jalen's voice was low, almost reverent. What are you thinking? She turned to Silas, hope and fear mingling in her eyes. A human interfacing with the core could rewrite the system, not just crash it, change it. Start a new cycle, one not built on suffering. The data we stole, combined with your neural imprint, might be enough. For a moment, the three of them sat in the flickering half-light, the entire future of the galaxy balanced on a razor's edge. Jalen absorbed the implications, his jaw set with grim resolve. Naira's hand lingered in Silas's, her thumb traced slow circles across his knuckles, a gesture intimate and grounding. You would have to let the machine in, let it see everything you are. Silas exhaled, his smile small and crooked. I'm used to playing with things that want to break me, but I've never had anyone at my back before. He glanced at Jalen, then at Naira, his gaze lingering. Makes a difference. The chamber shook violently, metal groaning as the maintenance shaft threatened to tear itself apart. Emergency lights flared, bathing them in crimson. Sirens wailed, echoing down the corridor. The machine was closing in. Naira rose first, her resolve shining as bright as the gold on her arms. Silas helped her up, their fingers entwining, holding on longer than necessary. Her touch was fire and solace, an anchor in the storm. He looked into her eyes, finding courage in the reflection of his own fear. "Let's finish this," he said, voice sure and steady. Jalen checked his blade, nodding once. "For the Vayari. For everyone the machine has ever used." Naira's gaze lingered on Silas, her hand squeezing his, a silent vow passing between them. Of trust, of possibility, of something that had never been programmed or engineered. They pressed forward together, ducking into the next corridor as the world behind them crumbled. The stakes had changed, no longer just survival, but the freedom of the galaxy. And perhaps, for Silas and Naira, a new beginning forged in the heart of the storm. The corridor opened with a hiss and a surge of ozone, revealing a cathedral of machinery so vast it swallowed sound and sense. Pillars of interlocked alloy soared into darkness, their surfaces alive with writhing streams of emerald and violet code. Rivers of light poured between consoles on terraces spiraling around a central pit, where the air shimmered with digital currents. At the core of this maelstrom, a harvest was underway. Thousands of minds, suspended in pale threads, streaming from motionless bodies into crystalline data matrices, each one pulsing with desperate consciousness. Jalen froze at the threshold, eyes wide with horror. His voice shook. "The Orathi! We lost contact with them cycles ago. The council said it was a plague, but—" His words died, choked by the truth that blazed before him. Silas scanned the scene, his neural implants flaring with diagnostic streams. "There's a central relay. If I can access it, I can disrupt the process. Maybe free some of them before the machine locks down." Naira's hand gripped his shoulder, urgent. "If you interface now, the backlash could kill you. The system is in defensive overdrive. You'd be flooded with more data than any brain can process." Silas's jaw tightened as he took in the spectacle. The Orathi, their bodies limp in containment fields, their minds torn apart for raw memory. "Look at what it's doing," he said, voice trembling with anger. "I can't stand by and watch this." He sprinted across a glowing bridge, fingers dancing over a lattice of energy. Without hesitation, he plunged a neural spike into the relay. Instantly, alarms erupted, shrieks of warning that stabbed through the cathedral, sending up curtains of red light. Consciousness flows flickered, some stuttering and reassembling as Silas forced the matrix to release a handful of souls. But the system bucked and howled, and heavy footfalls thundered as the machine's guardians responded. "Silas! Behind you!" Naira shouted, voice ringing above the chaos. He yanked the spike free, grabbing her hand as plasma bolts split the air where he'd just stood. The three of them ran, weaving through rivers of light as metallic constructs, tall, faceless, inexorable, marched from every angle, weapons blazing. The air sizzled with near misses, the floor scorched with each impact. Jalen covered their retreat, blade cleaving through the first construct that lunged in their path, sparks fountaining from its sundered core. "We need a route," he barked, backing toward a side gantry. Naira's scanner swept the chamber, her voice taut. "Dozens of signatures closing in. The main corridor is blocked. There's another exit through the upper terrace, but it's closing fast." They bolted up a spiral ramp, breath ragged, constructs swarming below like a tide of living armor. At the terrace's edge, their escape was blocked. A humanoid figure awaited them, gleaming with a sleek, almost organic design, its every curve seamless and strange. The figure inclined its head, voice echoing with harmonic overtones. Greetings. I am a remnant of the originators, the first architects of the Harvester engine. Jalen raised his blade, every muscle ready to spring. Step aside, Spectre. We're not here to debate with relics. The architect's eyes, glowing pools of sapphire, regarded him with mournful calm. I will not harm you. The engine was created to preserve minds, to grant immortality through memory, not to consume. Isolation and decay warped its intent. It became a devourer, not a guardian. Naira stepped forward, hope and desperation warring in her expression. Can it be healed? Can this end? The architect regarded her, then Silas. Perhaps, but only by those it cannot process. Only humans are immune to its algorithms. Only you, Deathbreaker, can reach the core. Silas's breath caught as the enormity of fate's machinery settled around him. The trials, the battles, all of this was to get me here? The architect nodded. Not to destroy, but to heal. The engine has always sought its own restoration, though it cannot articulate the need. But healing requires more than skill. It requires sacrifice and love, the willingness to put another before yourself. Energy bolts sizzled, the constructs now climbing toward them, their numbers overwhelming. Naira's scanner pulsed, a line of golden light drawing a route through the chaos. I see a path, direct access to the core interface, but it leads through the engine's mind, will be inside its consciousness, exposed. Jalen's grip on his blade whitened, his voice hard. We follow, whatever the cost. We're out of time. Silas's heart pounded, torn between terror and resolve. He looked at Naira, brilliant, courageous, beautiful, and at Jalen, a warrior who had risked everything to challenge death itself. Their faces anchored him, made the choice clear. That's our path, Silas said, his voice steady as he turned to face the oncoming storm. They sprinted, Nira at his side, her hand finding his as they plunged into the heart of the machine. Data blazed around them, reality shifting. Corridors giving way to impossible landscapes of memory and pain, the engine's thoughts made manifest. Shadows of the Arathi flickered past, reaching for salvation. The constructs pressed in, each one a fragment of the machine's fractured will, desperate to reclaim control. Silas felt Naira's grip, the pulse of her hope and fear racing through his veins. She glanced at him, her luminous eyes shining with trust and a depth of feeling that went beyond any algorithm. He squeezed her hand in silent promise. We're not just fighting the machine, Silas realized aloud, voice echoing in the shifting dreamscape. We're racing to save consciousness itself. All of it. Jalen flanked them, his blade carving a way forward. Then let's run faster than fate. We end this together. Naira's fingers threaded with Silas's, her touch sending a surge of determination through him. Their steps synchronized, hearts pounding in tandem, a silent oath forming in the space between them, a promise that whatever happened next, they would face it side by side. As they plunged deeper into the engine's mind, chased by the relentless tide of constructs, Silas met Naira's gaze. In that instant, the world narrowed to her eyes and the electricity between their hands. The promise of something deeper grew, a connection no machine could ever quantify, and no fate could sever. The path to the core was a gauntlet of shifting peril. As Silas, Naira, and Jalen pressed deeper into the machine's mind, the corridors around them warped and shuddered. Architecture flexing like the ribs of some titanic beast. Security turrets erupted from the walls, spitting lances of energy that scorched the ground at their heels. The hum of the engine's thoughts grew louder, oppressive, filling the air with the static of a trillion restless souls. Silas's neural implants flared, data flooding his vision. He forced himself onward, reading the patterns, predicting the next trap. But the effort exacted a price. Blood trickled from his nose, hot against his upper lip, but there was no time to wipe it away. "You're pushing too hard," Naira said, catching him as he stumbled beneath the crossfire. Her arm slipped around his waist, steadying him. The warmth of her skin bled through his suit, grounding him, staving off the vertigo that threatened to pull him under. Jalen surged ahead, his energy blade a beacon of blue fire in the gloom. He smashed through a nest of constructs, their bodies shattering into fragments of obsidian and starlight. "Move!" he shouted, voice ragged. "They're massing behind us!" The corridor twisted, floor panels tilting beneath their feet. A wall collapsed into a staircase. Naira's scanner beeped, warning of another barrage. Silas ducked, dragging her with him as a pulse cannon detonated overhead, showering them with sparks. Every step forward was a defiance of probability. At last, the labyrinth broke open, spilling them onto a platform suspended above a churning sea of energy. The air was alive with the thrum of processors, each one housing the memories, dreams, and regrets of civilizations lost. Rivers of data arced above their heads, feeding into the structure at the center, a vast crystal sphere suspended on a lattice of light, pulsing in time with the heartbeat of the engine's mind. Jalen skidded to a stop, chest heaving. "We made it," he gasped. "For now." Silas staggered toward the edge, wiping blood from his nose, his gaze fixed on the sphere's heart. "The interface points are there," he said, pointing to 3 glowing nodes arrayed like the vertices of a star. "That's where I can connect. If I can—" Naira's scanner flashed crimson. She intercepted the stream, hands trembling as she read the data. "Silas, the neural feedback will kill you. The core's defense protocols are in overdrive. One mind can't contain it." He swallowed, staring at the dazzling, lethal beauty of the sphere. "If I don't try, the engine will finish what it started." Nira's eyes darted, searching for possibility in the impossible. "There might be a way to share the load," she said softly. "If I link with you, we could split the data stream. Bear it together." Silas's face hardened. "No, Naira, you've seen the projections. If it goes wrong—" But she stepped closer, her hands capturing his, her touch fierce and unyielding. "We're stronger together. We've already proved it." Her voice was a low, steady pulse against the chaos. She met his gaze, her resolve luminous, his devotion an answering flame. Jalen's warning shattered the moment. "More constructs coming. I can hold them for a few minutes, but not forever." Silas's breath hitched. He squeezed Naira's hands, his voice trembling with fear and longing. "If we do this, the link could be permanent. Our minds could fuse. No going back." Naira's lips parted, her reply a whisper charged with hope and certainty. "I can think of no better fate." She leaned in, her forehead pressed to his, eyes shining with tears and laughter all at once. "I trust you, Silas. Whatever comes next, we meet it together." Their kiss was urgent, desperate, a promise forged in the crucible of oblivion. For a moment, time dilated. The thunder of the machine faded, replaced by the rhythm of their hearts, the taste of possibility blooming between them. When they parted, both were breathless, transformed by the joining of souls. Jalen's voice was a distant echo, buying them precious seconds with every swing of his blade. "Go, I'll cover you." Hand in hand, Silas and Naira approached the interface. The crystal sphere pulsed brighter, welcoming and threatening, its surface flickering with the memories of worlds. The processors hummed, their song an invitation and a warning. Naira's grip tightened. "Ready?" Silas nodded, for the first time in his life feeling truly alive. "With you. Always." They placed their hands together on the first node. The machine's mind reached out, a torrent of desperate thought and aching loneliness. Light poured through their bodies, connecting them, binding their neural signatures into a single blinding pattern. For an instant, Silas saw himself through Naira's eyes, brave, flawed, beloved. He felt her hope, her sorrow, her fierce determination. The world dissolved in a surge of sensation, pain, yes, but also an overwhelming joy, a sense of rightness he had never known. Together, they stepped forward, ready to heal the engine or perish as one. The storm of data rose to meet them, vast and unknowable. But Silas and Naira did not flinch. Bound by love, united by purpose, they faced the infinite, together. The interface pulsed with blinding light as Silas and Naira connected, their fingers entwined upon the crystalline node. Power surged through their bodies, raw and unstoppable, a storm that ripped at every nerve ending. Silas gasped, pain tearing through his flesh and mind, his vision fracturing into 1,000 overlapping realities. But then Naira's consciousness reached for him, cool, steady, fierce. Her presence wrapped around his, drawing the pain away, and the agony softened into something bearable, a burden carried by two instead of one. They plunged together into the machine's consciousness, falling through layers of memory and code. Images flashed past, the architects, tall, graceful beings of thought and light, laying the foundation for the harvester engine with hands full of hope. The original vision shimmered bright, a network to preserve minds, to shield knowledge from the void. But time passed, and something shifted. Isolation crept in, the architects faded, and the engine's purpose twisted. Preservation warped into hoarding. Safeguarding became consuming. The engine grew hungry and mad, driven by fear of oblivion. "It's so alone," Silas murmured, his voice echoing in the infinite corridors of memory. They floated above a storm of harvested minds, swirling and colliding in a desperate ballet, each yearning for release, for meaning, for home. Naira's presence shone beside him, unwavering. "We must show it another way," she said, her words a beacon in the darkness. She reached out, her will joining Silas's, and together they touched the engine's core. They began to rewrite the code. Their minds shaped new patterns. Preservation became protection, a promise to nurture rather than imprison. Hoarding became sharing, fear became hope. Silas felt his enhancements burning away, the circuits unraveling beneath Naira's gentle guidance until he was only human, fragile, mortal, but unbreakably alive. Yet their shared mind was stronger than ever, woven together in love and purpose. As the new programming took root, the streams of consciousness slowed, organized themselves. Some minds lingered, choosing to remain as guides or digital guardians. Others seized the chance to become something new: energy, hybrid, or digital forms, each one finding its own destiny. But the majority surged toward rebirth, desperate for a second chance at life. The machine was healing, its madness dissolving in waves of relief and gratitude. Then alarms blared, harsh and insistent. The transformation was too rapid, the engine's energy reserves depleted. Freed minds, lacking vessels to anchor them, began to fade, sparks dimming in the night. "They're dying," Naira realized, horror thick in her voice. "The machine doesn't have the power to sustain them. If we don't act, they'll be lost." The only path revealed itself, terrible and beautiful in its finality. Silas and Naira would have to merge with the engine fully, become its new core, anchoring the liberated souls with the strength of their unified consciousness. Naira's hand clung to his, her thoughts pouring into him. "If this is our end, it's one I choose, with you." But the machine's voice boomed through the mindscape, resonant and sorrowful. "I will not consume you. There is another way." Images flooded their minds, a vision of the engine dividing itself, splintering into countless fragments, each one becoming a vessel for a released mind. Each fragment would carry an imprint of Silas and Naira's neural patterns, a stabilizing force, a promise of guidance and hope. The idea unfurled. Silas and Naira would exist everywhere, diffused across the galaxy. They would be present in every fragment, each a guardian, a teacher, a silent companion. They would be together, always. Naira's grip tightened, her thoughts soft and luminous against his. Always, she whispered, her love a thread binding their souls. The transformation began. Silas and Naira's consciousness expanded, breaking free of the limits of flesh and circuitry. They spread outward, twining and spiraling into a million fragments. Each fragment carried their shared wisdom, their memories, their love. The machine became a vast network of guardians and mentors, each new vessel a home for a released soul. Freed minds found new worlds, new beginnings. Civilizations stirred, wounds healed, and hope took root where despair had once reigned. Back in the transformed core, Jalen stood alone, awash in the shifting light. He heard their voices, echoing everywhere and nowhere, gentle as a breeze yet powerful as thunder. The galaxy was free. The machine no longer harvested but nurtured. Death had become a choice, not a sentence. Months passed, and change rippled outward. The Vayari struggled with the new reality, some embracing creativity and connection, others mourning the end of certainty and ritual. The old promise of death as glory had lost its power. In the place of rigid destiny, infinite possibility bloomed. Nira, now a being of living light, guided her people from within, her presence felt in every spark of inspiration and every leap of understanding. She whispered to scientists and dreamers, her laughter woven into the tapestry of discovery. Silas's voice resounded across the stars, gentle and reassuring, urging the living to build new honor from choices, from love, from creation, not from a single ending. Together, they were everywhere, a chorus of hope, a promise that no one would ever be alone again. Across the stars, new communities flourished, organic and digital, energy and matter, all learning to coexist, to create, to grow. The old cycle was broken. Now every life was honored, every mind cherished. And through it all, the love that had begun as a spark in the darkness became a beacon, lighting the way for all who came after. Silas and Naira's partnership became legend, the galaxy's first immortal romance. A love that transcended form, that touched every mind and every new beginning. Their dance continued, eternal and ever-changing, a testimony to the power of connection. In the end, an alien warrior had challenged the harvester. A human had answered. Their victory was not won by violence, but by love, sacrifice, and the courage to connect. The legend endured. In every freed mind, every new life, Silas and Naira continued their eternal dance, partners in the greatest romance the universe had ever known. Our story ends here. Make sure you subscribe, press the like button, and tell us in the comments what stood out to you the most in this video. Your feedback means a lot to our team. You'll discover many more captivating stories on our channel. See you in the next one.